Hi, my name is Ray McGarrig, and I am a student at University of St. Thomas. And what I'd like to do today is I just simply want to tell you a story. This has been an amazing event, and everyone has made such remarkable points about social justice and about getting involved and getting active and taking a stand to make a difference. And so what I would like to leave you on this afternoon to close us out is on a story. It's not anything glamorous. It certainly is difficult to be the last speaker and follow those who've come before me. But to do this, I need your active involvement in this. I'd like you to take just a few moments to imagine with me for a moment that you're a child again, and that you and your family, your mother, your brother, your sister, and your father are going to get ready to go on a picnic. It's not something that's uncommon for you to do as a family. In fact, the only thing that makes this particular weekend a little different is that it's Father's Day weekend. You're going to go on a picnic, and your mom's got the little dog Susie, and she's pregnant, and she's going to take the kids and the father, and y'all are going to go on this picnic. And the dad says suddenly, hang on a minute. There's a spot that I've been wanting to see. The guys at work have been telling me about it, so I'm going to go check it out real quick. I'll be right back. And he leaves the house so quick that he forgets to put his shoes on. The family's not worried because, he left barefooted. He's going to be right back. The problem is that father never walks through the door again. In fact, the next time that family sees the father is on the 5 o'clock news, and the reporters are calling him the barefoot rapist. I want you to imagine just for a moment further what the lives of those children are going to look like. Children of incarcerated parents represent the most significant collateral consequence in the U.S. prison population record. There are more than 2.7 million children who have a parent incarcerated in the United States. And as large as that number is, and by the way, all my statistics and all my numbers come from either the Bureau of Justice Statistics or from Pew Trust Organization, you can look them up. As large as 2.7 million is, that is only our state and federal facilities. That does not include county and city jails. That does not include, clearly I'm fading out here. That doesn't include your counties, your cities. That's in our state and our federal. And I'm proud to announce, or maybe I'm ashamed to announce, that Texas ranks #1 with the number of parents that are incarcerated in their facilities. We have more than 150,000 parents that we know of. And here's one of the problems with this particular population. We don't have an accurate count. You can't walk into a school and say, if your mom or dad's in prison, raise your hand. Who's going to do that? I wouldn't want to do that. I've been researching this population since 2010. And I'm also the daughter of a convicted felon. So I know firsthand the stigma of shame and guilt that is attached to the sins or to the crimes of a parent's incarceration. I know firsthand what it feels like to be growing up, knowing where my father was and never being able to tell. I know the behavioral problems that we face. I know the emotional problems that we face. And I know the difficulties that we faced as a family growing up in this particular condition. Statistically speaking, when I first started doing the research, the number was 1.7 million children. And in only 4 years, that number increased to 2.7. Take that in for just a minute. That's 1 million children in 4 years whose parent has been incarcerated that we know of. That's what we know of. That does not, by any stretch of the imagination, give you the full picture. What we know of is that 1 in 28 children suffer the loss of a parent to prison. I would challenge you to ask yourselves how many children sit in your child's classroom at school? How many sit in your church pews? How many sit when you're coming into college? We're all impacted by this particular population. Here's the thing, though. When I started looking and doing the research on this, it was kind of a fluke. I dropped out of high school when I was 16 years old. I didn't graduate. That's not an uncommon factor for children whose parents have been incarcerated. In fact, we're 23% more likely compared to 4% to drop out of high school. And I was a statistic. But I was going to go to college, and it was 2010. I was 45 years old, and I thought, I'm going to use the internet, and I'm going to see if I can find some information. I thought maybe there would be someone out there that could help me learn how to apply for college, first of all, first-generation college student, or perhaps there was going to be some scholarships available for children whose parents have been incarcerated. I did not know that was a term, children of incarcerated parents, until I did that Google search, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is a thing. this term, children of incarcerated parents, is a real thing. But no one else had heard about it. I've done this speech numerous times in numerous settings, and I'm always surprised at the number of people who have never heard of children of incarcerated parents. I was one of them. I was one of them and one who had never heard of it. That doesn't even make sense in this world. In a world where we have media, and in a world where we have voices, and in a world where we're all about social justice and making change, how do we not know that 2.7 million children in the United States have this condition and are facing these remarkably hard times? So I didn't find any scholarships, but I did my first research on this, and I kind of took it and ran with it. When I first did my original research, I learned that children of incarcerated parents, those of us who have gone through the incarceration of a parent, are 6 times more likely to be incarcerated ourselves. Today, 4 years later, we now know that number is as high as 8 to 9 times more likely. This is not getting better. This is getting progressively worse. And here's one of the bigger problems I believe that we have. In our effort to get tough on crime, and in our effort to bring the war on drugs, and we're going to be this tough country, we weren't prepared for the fallout. Nobody was prepared for me to stand here and tell you that in 4 years, we now have another 1 million children to add to this list. There are not enough facilities in place to help meet the overwhelmingly unmet needs of these children. So I figure it looks too big. There's nothing we're going to be able to do about this. This is a problem that's just way bigger than little me. And besides, who am I anyway? You see, because I learned very young how to internalize shame and how to internalize guilt and how to internalize the crimes of my father. I learned very young how to keep you at bay so that you would never figure out who I am. The very nature of standing in an academic environment talking about the fact that my father was incarcerated goes against every taboo I was taught growing up. You don't talk about it. You don't tell anybody. Statistically speaking, these children we know are likely to move 8 times in their lifetime. That's 8 times they get to recreate their lives. That's 8 times they get to retell a lie. That's 8 times they get to feel like they don't fit in. That's 8 times they get to walk in and be the new kid with a father or a mother that's incarcerated. My family moved 8 times in under 2 years. It was a very, very hard thing to find my way. So my value, our value, 2.7 million children's value is very distorted. Our self-concept, our awareness of who we are and where we're going to go and where we come from is very distorted at a very young age. And I believe, and studies have also showed, that without some sort of positive intervention, the future of these children is very bleak indeed. So what I decided to do, with the help of Dr. Bornesia and with the help of some wonderful women here at the campus, we decided to start a social justice club that we called Society's Forgotten Children. That was the name of my very first research paper, and that also described how I always felt as a child growing up. I always felt like we had been forgotten. We couldn't talk about what was going on. Nobody could talk about it. Can you imagine if I'd have told you in the very beginning of this story that father had been killed in an accident? The community would have had a very different response. They would have been knocking on the door, and they would have been saying, how can we help? Here's some food. Let us help you. Let us take those kids while you plan the funeral. Let us get you together. The church would have been knocking on that door saying, we're here to help. What can we do? But instead, what might have happened to that family was cars were going to drive by and point, because it was on the news. It was being sensationalized. These kids can't walk out in the yard anymore. No neighbor is going to come knock on the door and say, how can we help? Those neighbors are going to come knock on that door and say, you probably want to think about moving. You know, our kids used to play over here. What's really going on? What's really going on? So these kids had to learn how to internalize this stuff and not talk about it. And these were things that I used to think were like bars of shame. But what I've learned, in just sitting through one of the conversations talking about rape earlier, what I've learned is that it's not bars of shame, it's layers of shame. It's that shame that says, somehow it's my fault. Somehow I'm responsible. You see, with Society's Forgotten Children, what we wanted to do was we wanted to create an awareness about children of incarcerated parents, and we wanted to raise money to go towards their academic pursuit. There are nonprofit organizations that currently do exist, but they're not able to meet the overwhelming needs of these children. So we wanted to highlight them. And we wanted to let them know we're watching, we support you, we're glad you're doing what you're doing. You're not alone. And so the officers and myself, we put together a 5K walk. And this year, we had it in March. Some of you are aware of it, and some of you are not. This will be an annual event. And we raised almost $4,000 that we donated to Scholar Chips. And Scholar Chips, just a little background there, is a nonprofit organization that gives three $10,000 scholarships each year to children whose parents have been incarcerated. More importantly, they help these children, these kids, they help them apply for college. They help them, counsel them through college. They help them with their books. Hey, being at college is a job. There's so much to it. And as a first-generation college student, man, I'm like walking in the dark. I have no idea what I'm doing. But thank God that there are people on this campus and at the other campus that I was at before that have reached out to help me and that have made a way. Thank God for pro bono professors. Thank God for the movement of people getting involved and saying, no, we're not going to let this happen in our backyard. You see, we don't want it to be something that affects us. We don't want to think that our prison system is bad. And I'm not even trying to talk to you about whether or not criminals should be punished. I'm not trying to talk to you about how messed up our prison system is, because that's a whole nother talk. I want to talk to you just simply about the children. And I know that I may have chosen a very far-fetched story to start this talk off with, but I chose that story for two reasons. And the first reason I chose it is because I want to demonstrate to you, each of you, that we're a very homogenous group. Those of us whose parents have been incarcerated, we're not cookie cutters. We're not cookie cutter kids. We don't fit into some label. We have parents who go to jail for drugs or alcohol or white-collar crimes. We have them that go to federal penitentiaries, state penitentiaries, city jails, county jails. We have them in and out, and I don't even get me started on when they get out, how messed up that is, because it's very messed up, and it disrupts the child's life even once again. And the protocol that's missing to help these children is tremendous. But the second reason that I chose that story is because that's my story. My father was the barefoot rapist, and I lived under that kind of shame for a very, very, very long time. I was 45 years old before I spoke about it in public. 45 years, I learned to internalize that kind of shame and that kind of guilt and that kind of stigma. And one layer at a time, and to me it's like an onion. We get to peel back the layers of shame like those layers of an onion. They're transparent, you can see through them, but they make a difference. And when they're all together, they're hard to get a hold of. They're hard to see. I think I'm on the other side of it. I hear someone talk about rape, and immediately I internalize and go, okay, wait a minute, Raymond. It's not your fault. It's not your crime. It's not your time. But if someone had not taught me that, I wouldn't know that, and I wouldn't be able to sit in here, and I wouldn't be able to listen to people talk about things like that without taking that on myself. I put on that cape, and I walk through, and I think, God, please don't let anybody know who I am. But today what I've learned is by giving a voice to the voiceless and by helping other people overcome this particular epidemic that's going on in the United States, I feel empowered. In August of this year, my father died in the state penitentiaries. I was up in Virginia doing a presentation on Society's Forgotten Children. We had not yet put it into place. It was something I was talking about doing. And while I was there doing that presentation, he died in prison. Surprisingly, I was able to give his eulogy. And that empowerment comes from people stepping in and intervening in my life. And if I'm one person who represents 2.7 million, imagine the impact that we could have in our own communities by getting involved and reaching out. And when you see someone or you know someone who's involved with the prison systems, reach out to that child. Let them know they're not alone. Let them know they don't have to suffer by themselves. They don't have to get through this. And most importantly, let them know it's not their fault, but it is our responsibility. It's all of our responsibilities to stand up and make a difference and help pave the way and help show these children how they can fulfill their potential and become the person they're supposed to be. And lastly, I want to tell you that it came as no surprise when I dropped out of high school. It came as no surprise when I got in trouble with the law at age 11 my first time, and that was not my last time, unfortunately. It came as no surprise when I had problems developing personal relationships and trusting people and letting people trust me. What does come as a surprise is when I stand here and tell you my daughter graduated from Texas A&M. I'm the proud grandmother of 2 beautiful granddaughters. I have an amazingly supportive husband who's walked me through this. My mother, with a 6th grade education, raised 4 children by herself because my father's crimes were so bad, he didn't get back out for a long time. And when he did, he was a repeat offender and he went back. I thought the worst thing that happened to us was when he went. What I learned was the worst thing that happened is when they let him back out because his crimes became worse. This is an ongoing progressive problem. This is not something that's going to change overnight. But because you're aware of it today, and because I can stand here today and give a voice to this, I know that we're going to make progress in making a change, a necessary change, a change in our churches, a change in our communities, a change in our schools, because these children are getting lost in the cracks. And I don't want them to have to wait until they're 45 years old to go, hey, maybe I can go to school. Maybe I can be somebody besides who I thought I was. Today, I've learned that I'm not judged because of whose I am, but I'm judged because of who I am. It takes a lot of process. It takes a lot of work. And my hope is when I leave University of St. Thomas, I've just got accepted into U of H's master program. And thank you. And I will work as a social worker because I really want to put some protocol in place to help filter out the brokenness in our system. I want to make a difference because someone made a difference in my life. I want to give back because someone took the time out to give to me. And most importantly, I want to break the generational curse of imprisonment. We don't have to go to prison just because our parents went to prison, but if someone doesn't help us, if someone doesn't teach us, if someone doesn't reach out and show us how not to, we will, because we do as we do as we see. We do as we're taught. And it was hard for me, but I want to thank you for allowing me to stand up and give this a voice.